Welcome to this new automotive news video for Tuesday, March 3rd, 2026. And today we'll have a lot of news related to the Renault group. Not only that, just to reassure you, but we'll also talk about Alpine, which is starting to remove models from its current lineup. We'll discuss two topics that seem a bit contradictory. At the same time, Renault announced it is shifting focus from electric cars to another technology, while at the same time announcing that it's increasing its incentive, a boost that helps finance the purchase of Renault electric models. We'll also talk about a new increase in the price of the vehicle registration certificate in France. About MG, the Chinese brand aiming to produce cars in Europe, that's actually good news. Finally, we'll discuss Skoda, which is announcing new, more powerful engines in its lineup. These are the topics for the video on March 3, 2026. I hope you'll find them interesting. And if that's the case, I'm counting on you to show your support for my channel for free. You can do that by leaving a like on this video to boost it, subscribing for the next ones, and leaving a comment where you share your thoughts on today's news. We'll begin by discussing the rising cost of vehicle registration certificates in France, which went up again on March 1, 2026. So it's a small increase, in quotes, since it's about 2.4% more on average across France since the beginning of the month. An increase that has been justified by the local authorities who implemented it by the need to simply replenish the state's coffers after the efforts made on the 2026 budget. There are three things that will increase, and it will depend on the region where you register your future car. A new fixed tax is being introduced, such as in Ile-de-France, where an extra 14 euros will be charged for each registration certificate, regardless of the vehicle's fiscal horsepower or penalties. The second thing, and again, this will depend on the region, is an increase in the price of the fiscal horsepower. For example, it's plus 2% in the PACA region, but it's 23% more in Corsica. Because of this, there are some regions, like for example in Nouvelle-Aquitaine, where registering a car in 2026 will cost almost twice as much as in 2023. And finally, the third thing that has changed is that there are no longer any exemptions for car registration certificates. There was a time when it was completely free, but that started to change around mid-2025. And now, there is no region that offers free registration certificates for electric cars anymore. The only exception is Hauts-de-France, where you can still get a 50% exemption on electric car registration. However, this will eventually end too. I also wanted to talk to you about Alpine, which is really starting its transition towards the bizarre strategy it announced several years ago. Alpine, which until a few months ago only produced ultra-lightweight combustion engine Berlinettas, is now moving towards 100% electric vehicles. And sometimes it goes even further against its roots, now offering massive SUVs weighing over 2 tons. To achieve its goals, Alpine needs to remove 100% combustion engine models from its lineup. And that's it. It's starting now. Since the entry-level version of its A110, Berlinetta, will be leaving Alpine dealerships' catalogs by the end of March 2026. It was the last version of this Berlinetta that was still somewhat affordable. Well, I say that in quotes, because we're still talking about a car here that costs 66,900 euros. But still, with its disappearance, the GTS version will become the entry-level model of the A110. And there, the price is much higher. We're discussing a car costing 79,000 euros, 13,000 more than the classic A110, with a higher penalty as well. The normal A110 had a 5,000 euro penalty and the 7,900. So, in total, that's 16,000 euros more that you'll have to pay to buy a new Alpine A110. And this is really the beginning of the end for this model, since the GTS versions and the other versions will also eventually disappear, leaving only the brand's fans at the dealership. Between the Alpine A390, which does 2, and the A290, which is the sport version of the Renault 5, they have absolutely nothing to do with what Alpine used to make until now. Today, we're going to talk about Renault and its strategy, since its boss, Francois Provost, gave a new interview to the British media Auto Express, in which he explained that Renault was going to diversify its engine strategy. What this means is that until now, Renault has invested heavily in electric cars, but sales and success haven't necessarily followed, so it depends on the models. Some are selling well, like the Renault 5 Electric, which even managed the feat of making it into the top 10 overall sales in France. But there are others that are selling much less well, like the Renault 4, which, however, benefited from the same treatment as the Renault 5. That is, reviving an iconic model from the brand and updating it for today. Or even, and this is much more damaging for Renault, the Megane, which now only exists as a fully electric car, used to be regularly in the top 10 in sales, but now finds itself relegated to the top 30, or even top 35. So there have been some successes with electric cars at Renault, but overall things aren't going that well. And that's exactly what Francois Provost, the CEO of the Renault Group, has noticed. Electric car sales are increasing in Europe, but not at the pace that the brands had hoped for. As a result, Renault finds itself somewhat forced to tinker and improvise a new strategy to adapt to this demand, which is lower than expected. Faced with this problem, and unlike many European manufacturers who have mainly relied on plug-in hybrid cars as a transition from pure combustion engines to electric cars, allowing them to keep the range and practicality of a combustion engine while benefiting from much more favorable tax incentives. Well, you should know that at Renault, they don't want to do what everyone else is doing, and they're not going to bet on plug-in hybrids. Instead, François Prévost explains that Renault is mainly going to focus on what they call REX, for range extender, which in French means range extender. So it's a technology that's still quite unknown here, but it's already quite widespread in China. Basically, it's an electric car with a combustion engine on board. But the combustion engine never directly drives the wheels. It's powered by gasoline or diesel and generates electricity on board the vehicle. That electricity is used to recharge the batteries for the electric motors, because what directly drives the wheels here are electric motors. To put it simply, it's the opposite of a plug-in hybrid car. On a plug-in hybrid, we mostly rely on the combustion engine, except for short trips.
On va pouvoir rouler en 100% électrique. Là,
These will be 100% electric cars, where for long trips you can rely on a combustion engine that will recharge the electric part. According to Renault, the goal will be to allow drivers to enjoy electric driving while eliminating the fear of running out of power. According to Bruno Vanel, who is the product manager at Renault, this solution would address the main problem with electric cars, which is currently their limited range. It's up to you to say what you think about that. But I think that's not the main problem. The main problem is something else, but that's another topic. This solution would be based on the work of horses. We've talked about it a lot on my channel. It's a company that was created by Renault in partnership with the Chinese brand Geely. And it's really an engine manufacturer. Their specialty is developing engines. And horses specifically developed a 1.5L gasoline engine that was designed exclusively to be an onboard generator. That's exactly what's needed for this technology. Renault clarified that their strategy will differ by segment. Small city cars like the Renault 5 will have one approach, while larger vehicles will follow another, where versatility is essential, and to be versatile, you need to offer a lot of range. Then the range extender will become the strategic foundation. I think this mainly concerns the Megane and Scenic models, whose sales as 100% electric vehicles have been catastrophic. Compared to previous generations with combustion engines, which were more versatile and, most importantly, cheaper. Let me remind you that a new Megane in 2019 cost 29,000 euros, while a new Megane in 2026 is 39,000. And still, if you want the bigger batteries, which only offer 468 kilometers of range, you have to pay 43,000 euros. So I'm not sure that with this new technology, which is more complex since it combines an electric motor and a combustion engine, it can really fix that. Anyway, this news seems a bit contradictory when we learn on the same day that Renault is increasing the amount of the incentive bonus. Though it's not Renault who decides it, the incentive is a national system. It's the bonus, also known as C2E if you prefer. Now, even if it wasn't Renault who decided on this increase, it's the company that put everything in place so that these electric models could benefit from the enhanced incentive, the Incentive Plus Plus, which will allow future buyers of these electric models to get up to 7,650 euros in bonuses. To be able to benefit from it, the vehicle in question, as well as its batteries, had to be produced in the European Economic Area. Until now, only the Scenic with the long-range version and the 87 kW batteries met these criteria. Now, the entire Scenic range is eligible for this bonus, including the versions that are not long-range. Also, the entire electric Megane range, the Renault 5 with the 5.2 kWh version, as well as the Alpine A290 are eligible. The only 100% electric model that doesn't have access to this bonus is the Renault 4, which is fully electric. This probably won't help its sales go up. A rather interesting detail is that the Renault 5 with the 52 kW battery with this new bonus becomes cheaper than the version that was supposed to be the entry-level one. 95 horsepower, 40 kW battery. On the MG side, a brand that was formerly British and is now Chinese, they now want to produce their models in Europe. The goal is to boost the sales of their electric cars, which plummeted in 2026. Previously, these were made in China, and Chinese electric cars face high taxes in Europe. This benefits the European automotive industry, but we'll see what actually changes. As for prices, of course, producing in Europe is more expensive than producing in China. And the head of MG Europe has already stated, I quote, that he now has to rely more on the brand's value and the quality of the products, not just on competitive prices. What that means is that MG will probably move up market, and prices are also likely to increase in Europe. To finish, let's quickly talk about Skoda, which is announcing a new engine for its Superb, which was previously offered. With a 150 horsepower gasoline engine, a 177 horsepower diesel engine, as well as a 204 horsepower plug-in hybrid. It's a new, more powerful plug-in hybrid engine that's coming to the lineup, with a total of 272 horsepower. It uses the 1.5 TSI gasoline engine for the combustion part and a 25 kilowatt battery for the electric part. As a result, you get up to 120 kilometers of range in fully electric mode, enough to cover most daily trips without using any gasoline. As for charging, the battery will accept up to 11 kiloamperes in alternating current and 50 kiloamperes in direct current, which allows you to charge from 10 to 80% in just 26 minutes. At a fast charging station, prices will start at 62,000 euros. It's not exactly cheap, but the good news is that with this new plug-in hybrid engine, there's no CO2 penalty. There will be a small weight penalty of 1,420 euros. That's all for today's news. I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, I'm counting on your support by leaving a like, subscribing for upcoming videos, and possibly supporting through the join button. I'll see you very soon for a new video. Bye.